oh, cool. Now we're working with X vendor and we're now trying to interface with them and their tickets and their tool set. It's just layers of complexity. It's like the world's worst onion.
So it boils down to what is the importance of strategy? What's more important, people, processes, and tools?
We can find a million tools, but I can't find a million people.
Welcome back to Raw AI Solutions, a podcast where we explore how business leaders are navigating the fast-moving world of AI and digital transformation. My name is Denise Powell. I'm your host, and today we are joined by Jeff Zimbalist. He's the CEO and founder of Applied Technology Solutions. So, Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you with us. Jeff, would you mind kicking us off? Just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your company.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're Applied Technology Solutions. This is our, believe it or not, 15th year in business, which is kind of weird when you talk about the MSP world and what it was like 15 years ago and what it's like now. It's been an interesting ride for that. But before I did this, I was doing IT for K-12 public schools in California. So that's also changed quite a bit in the last 20 some years. So yeah, it's been a lot of change and a lot of trying to keep up with those changes for quite a while. But yeah, I mean, we're a traditional MSP. So everything from, we're dealing with data backups and that from, technology management and like, hey, yeah, we still get those like, hey, I can't print kind of tickets still flow in. So it's a full gamut of stuff.
Excellent. And tell us about your journey. How did you get from where you were in the past? What led you to become CEO of Zimbalist?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's an interesting one. So yeah, worked for public education for a long time. It was a pretty good gig, believe it or not. California's got its ups and downs with funding and whatnot for schools, but for the most part, working IT for schools is a pretty decent gig. Enjoyed doing that for a while. Came up on a year where we had weird budget cuts and all kinds of stuff, and it was a great opportunity for me to decide that like, hey, I can't go any further here. What else can we do? So I started this and I was like, hey, I'm done with government completely. I'm just gonna do private stuff from now on. We're gonna do healthcare because it's, because whatever, I was done with government. So small healthcare was our thing. I was really focused on like single doctor practices, and that was the whole thing we were gonna support. And probably maybe 4 6 months in ish, a friend of mine who was a superintendent called me and said, hey, we could really use some help. And so we came back to public sector. And so we've been doing, public sector, private sector kind of split for, since really about 6 months in. I'm never going back to government didn't last an entire year, but that's fine. They have a need and we can fill that need and it's cost effective for them. So it works out pretty well. But yeah, it's an interesting ride. I mean, I started doing stuff like pulling cable for, adding internet into classrooms and stuff. When I first got started to, then I was a tech for a while. We did this, I worked in a few places where it was like, hey, we all we have are Mac labs. And like, all right, sweet. So anybody that's watching that's old enough to remember Blueberry iMacs, yeah, we had just fleets of those everywhere, and yeah, so we've done a lot of different things in the last 20 whatever years.
So I'm sure you saw the pain points then. That's the reason why you started
Yeah.
your company. Have you seen any major trend changes, especially in the last year? Like, are your customers asking anything different now as opposed to what they asked a year ago?
Yeah, I think a huge trend, I guess, for our industry is as folks, I guess we're technically on the outside, as MSPs looking into everyone's business. And one of the bigger trends we've seen is compliance is now like something people either think about, care about, or are required to care about by insurance or whatever. And for the longest time, IT has always just been IT, and we do IT stuff over here, and then everyone's doing business stuff over here. And probably the largest change we've seen across the board is that those are now becoming much more, I was going to say streamlined, but they're really not, but much more intertwined, I guess is the right word. It's really a lot of, hey, this is a business process that now has an IT process, and that's great. But it's also, like you asked last year really is like, okay, well, I've got this compliance thing to meet. Are we meeting that? Why not? How can we meet that? And that's been great for us from opening up a lot of conversations with our clients about, hey, like, we could do these things for you, or like, hey, like you really should have been doing these things, but this is why we've been trying to get you to go this way. So it gives us an opportunity to sort of push them down the right road, the ones that aren't doing it, and the ones that are, it's really nice and sort of validating to say like, hey, you had to meet compliance, and like you've been following all of our recommendations for the last 5 or 6 years, which is why you already meet compliance. So but yeah, that's become much more, it's been brought a lot more to the forefront than it used to be.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, especially with AI, in every single corner that you look,
And it's
compliance.
attached to everything. It's like AI powered this, and like, hey, we use AI for this, and from a like healthcare compliance point of view, AI hasn't got the I would say that the governmental like guidelines as far as like HIPAA compliance, for example, haven't quite lined up with HIPAA yet. In fact, or with AI yet. In fact, I don't even think there's really a lot in the current security rule, which is changing this year again. But there's not a lot about it, and so it's not so much the wild west of AI, but it's not too far off.
I'm with you. One thing I've noticed with a lot of clients is, oh, we need to comply. And when you try and find out more information about what exactly does that mean, the information's not there to back it
Yeah,
up.
and a lot because most entities that are in charge of enforcing compliance, they don't have a really great compliance model that AI fits into. And so it's like we're trying to cram it into this box and say like, okay, well, as long as it does all these other things, then it should probably be fine. It's like, okay, well, I don't know how to make it prove that, but like I guess we'll give it a shot. Like it's been very that's been a real challenge.
Well, on to today's
Sure.
topic. So we are busy. Today we're going to explore how digital complexity and tool overload are quietly fragmenting culture and alignment inside organizations, and what leaders are doing about it. So you've been across the public and private sector on the IT environments, but where is tech overload the most visible? Is it in productivity, culture, team performance? And how have you seen smart companies address that?
Boy, that's tech overload. I mean, it's tough. We just refer to that as the blanket term of just straight burnout, but it really is like tech overload is really that's really the root cause of it. And it's nice that you're covering it, because often it's sort of swept under the rug as a like, oh well, our culture here is so fast moving, and like you should evolve with the thing, and like that's tough to do when you're just staring at a wall of tickets that's never going to go away. You know, from a you know from a technician point of view, I mean, we see tech overload. I mean, yeah, you can. I mean, tool sets are more complex than they used to be. I would say that just to sort of back that up a little bit. I mean, yes, there's tickets, there's the workload, and there's just the workload does constantly increase regardless of what your client size is because we're adding all these other things into it. A colleague of mine refers to things like this as the great unfunded mandate, where it's like, hey, by the way, I need you to take care of this for us now, and it's like, okay, well, that's not in contract, but I guess we'll try and make it work. And there's plenty of stuff like that. But what we see a lot is for years ago, there was this great idea that we could have the single pane of glass to manage all of the endpoints that we manage and to like deal with all of the stuff, and we'll get everything from this vendor, and they're going to hook it all together, and we're going to just API the crap out of it. And like, I've got one thing and I've got this great visibility. And that has just, it never materialized. It just never happened, as I'm sure you've heard from other folks. And so, what, now we have a tool for everything, right? Like, cool, we've got EDR tools, we've got like an MDR team, we've got like, we have like a SOC team, and like they've got their tool. And like, so you have all these tools. And many of them do communicate together, and that's great, but the visibility across all of them can cause a fair amount of just straight up like tool fatigue. I was in a meeting internally here not that long ago, and I crack open my laptop and I've got about 2 dozen tabs open, and the person I'm meeting with, she's like, what the hell, like why are you, and I was like, dude, these are the tools. Like, I was doing this task, I needed all of these things because this is the stuff that we use to accomplish this thing. And that can definitely contribute. We in large IT, teams or larger MSP environments, there's some segmentation of tasks, where I think some companies will say like, hey, we've got, a team that does X, Y, and Z and a team that does A, B, and C. And that's cool because you can break those tools up a little bit. But from a productivity point, that then makes it take longer to accomplish stuff. So like, okay, cool. Well, now I need to push this over to another team to deal with it, and then they deal with it, and then like you never really know what happened because you send it that way. And so like it's there's a little bit of that, and if you're a smaller team where you're mostly, just generalists working on the environment as a whole, then we do see a lot of fatigue across the board. Like, oh cool, that's this tool, I gotta go remember how this works, and like I gotta go remember how this one works. And so like when we onboard new employees, we hit them with a wall of stuff, and then their first week they're just glossed over with like, oh man, there's so like I have to internalize and learn so much stuff to even just start doing the actual work. So I would say that the disparity of the tool set definitely contributes to tech overload. I mean, aside from just the standard in our industry, which is that there's always more work than you're going to accomplish in a day. So your task list is never at zero. Like, everybody's like, oh, I want to get to inbox zero. And it's like, well, you want to do that with tickets too, but like, that's never going to happen.
Absolutely. I've seen it happen in so many organizations, especially when you have multiple third party vendors coming in to fix tickets net. Unless your processes are very smooth and well documented, a lot of the tickets fall through the gaps. And then also, how one vendor fixes a ticket is very different to another one. And so, internally, when you're trying to find out exactly where are things in the pipeline, it's really difficult to bring that all together on top of all the complexity of all the different tools as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. You start adding third parties in and like, oh, cool. Now we're working with X vendor and we're now trying to interface with them and their tickets and their tool sets. And then it's just, yeah, it's just layers of complexity. It's like the world's worst onion.
So it boils down to, what is the importance of strategy?
I mean, it's okay. So like, what is the important, like, it's the important thing, right? So like it,
Mhm.
so like this, if you take like strategy as a whole and say like what's our strategy around this, if the goal is to, and as it should be, the goal is employee retention, right? Like we want to grow and retain our employees, and so if that's what we want to do, then we have to come up with a way for them to not be just purely overwhelmed by the things that they have to do. So like the strategy, I mean, really, like, what is the strategy? Ours really is internal support. It's Some of us have been here a lot. I mean, I've been here forever, right? But some of my guys have been here longer, and so we try to have that internal support mechanism and that very team-based attitude where like this is our problem to solve, so that people don't just get hung up on like, oh man, I don't know how to, like, I can't get through this thing, like I'm struggling with this one vendor, and it's my responsibility, so I'm just going to keep hitting my head against this problem until I can solve it. And like that's very standard for IT folks. Like we have a tendency do
Mhm.
that. We're all very much like, I'm going to solve this problem, which is awesome until you're at this point. And so, yeah, so I mean, we have found success with trying to make everything as collaborative as possible. I'd say our strategy has really been towards pushing everything towards the team model, everything that's possible, and a lot of times that is just simply like, someone help me with this. Like send up a flare, like I'm struggling with this, and invariably somebody else on the team is like, oh, so and so at that vendor, that's the person you got to talk to. Or like, oh well, if you use chat support, it's 3 times faster than calling that vendor on the phone. Or so we try to make that sort of open communication thing. I mean, when we talk about strategy, for us, a lot of that comes back to like our company core values. One of our core values is open communication, and for clients, that's obviously like we want to tell them what we're doing, and they know who's working on what for them, and that makes sense. But it really extends all the way in. So like for the vast majority of stuff, I mean, we're extremely lucky in that with a smaller team, we can be very open about a million things. But that open communication in the team, that's been like sort of the driving strategy for trying to bring down that overloaded, I have no idea how I'm going to do all of this, is at least, I guess the minimum we're shooting for is at least you're not there alone. At least we're all there together and we're working on it collectively. And I feel that when it works, which it works most of the time, when that works, I think it helps folks at least. It decreases the anxiety of there's just so much and the tool sets are so complicated. At least then they're like, okay, well, I know I have help. I know I can get help. And there's in it, I think it really truly removes any sort of stigma of I have to know how to do all of these things. Um, because like there's no like, I mean, I guess long ago you'd have employees or you'd have people that just like they knew everything, the whole environment top to bottom, literally everything. And like that's cool, but like the complexity of where we are now versus where we were 25 years ago is there is no one person that knows everything. Like there's no like there it's just simply too complex. Like I mean, for example, like we're an IT company, we're an MSP, we don't even manage the phones on our desks. Like we have a partner company that does like VoIP and networking, and we have them do our phones because like I'm not going to learn it. Like it's yet another phone system. Like we're just not going to learn it. Like so it's like we do the same thing our clients do. Like it's super cost effective for me to just outsource that to someone who focuses on that. And so I guess we kind of throw all those things at it from a strategy point of view. Is like, what do we like? We can't be everything for everyone, but we can be very good at the things that we do, and we can have really great partners for all the things that we can't do. And so that's been our sort of like global strategy, if you will, is to really like find our lane, stay in it, and focus. But by doing that, it allows us to have a very, very team, like we're all on this same train and we're all working together for these things. And it allows us to be very open internally as well as externally. Seems people respond to that. I don't know that works for everybody. Works great for us though.
Have you considered talking about outsourcing the role of AI? Like, do you think there is merit in the fact that AI can come in and take over like repetitive tasks or manual tasks, automation of tasks?
Yeah,
Have you
especially from an
embraced that?
automation point of view. Absolutely.
Mm.
I mean, we look at like, it is so broad, right? So it's interesting, like, oh, well, it's AI, and like, really, like, I mean, that could be like one of the very popular machine language learning models that everyone is familiar with, or you see like that literally everyone talks about, or it can just be as simple as like, hey, this is a machine learning model that focuses on this one thing that we've been leveraging for like years. It just happens that now I guess we could term it as AI, but up until AI became very popular, it was just like it was machine learning. And so we see that there are a lot of really great tool sets that have like an AI layer, if you will, that handles a lot of that automation because I mean, there's no way to, especially now in today's marketplace, there's no way for me to say, like, we're going to do these things. And by we, I mean actual people. Like, there's no possible way. Like, especially if you talk about something like security or endpoint detection and response, and you're saying, okay, well, here's our EDR platform, and we're going to monitor this for you. And like, that's great. We can monitor it, and we have a SOC team that monitors it. And that's fantastic. But at the same time, like, there's no way they're parsing every single log. Like the log files are enormous, right? So like AI brings exceptions out. And then we monitor the exceptions because the AI model can actually efficiently look through all of those things, and there's no way we could. So I mean, it's going to see trends faster than a human is going to see it. So like it's exactly what it can do. I mean, yeah, it does lots of other cool stuff too, but like we see it as like here's a task that takes an eternity to complete. That doesn't have to be a person. Like it like we're talking about like it's not like I need it to like give me its opinion about this. I need it to go find this.
Absolutely. But I think you hit the nail on the head there about security. Because you're known for delivering security as well as resilience, what's the most common friction point you see when clients try to scale fast without overwhelming their teams with tools, AI, process complexity? Where's the biggest friction point?
Oh man, when you scale fast, a lot of the times, what we see as a friction point is picking the wrong tool. So you pick a tool and you dive in and you scale, and it's amazing when you have two team members, and then all of a sudden you've got five or six, and you're like, oh wait, this is terrible. Like this does not work well. And we see that unfortunately in our industry, we see it a lot in like ticket management. There's 1,000 ticket systems out there, but like, here's a great ticket system. If it's just you and a buddy doing IT, this is perfect. You throw a bunch of people in it and you need ticket queues, and all of a sudden it's junk and you're way too big now to just change on a dime. And so what we see a lot with the friction point is honestly like the decisions of the past catching up to us. That's always a friction point when you're scaling, because you're like, oh, I want to, we're going to grow and we're on this growth trajectory. And that was cool till we're here. And now this software is terrible because we're here, And so that is always going to be there as a friction point. But aside from that, I mean, really as an MSP, we've got lots of, here's our SOP for this. Like, this is our standard process for X, Y, and Z. And those work those work really well when you create them and they're the size you are. But what we have found is a lot of things that we thought were very streamlined are really not, because now that we are, now that we've grown to where we are, it's tough to just apply the same thing over and over again. So scaling itself, I think, is actually a friction point, because if you unless you went into everything from day one and said, I'm gonna be this size, and so let's key, gear it all towards that. Um, then maybe you would have made better decisions. But a lot of us, especially peers of mine that have grown through these same pain points, we talk often about, like, man, if I had known X, and that's never like, oh well, if I had hired these people, or just, I mean, a lot of us have great teams and that's awesome, but it's always like, dude, if I had just known that this was the wrong decision, I would have been okay paying for the enterprise level software as a tiny company if I knew that I wouldn't have had to do this thing right now of migrating from this software to that software. Because if you look at it from like a cost or a productivity point of view, nothing loses you money and productivity like changing a major piece of internal software. Like, this is all non-billable time. Like, I'm just bleeding money for 6 months while we transition to a new billing platform or whatever. And it's like, so yeah, there's plenty of friction there. And it's funny because, like, there's no real great, I mean, there are a few things you could do to sort of mitigate that, but, like, there's no real, like, here's the blueprint, go follow it.
I think IT always gets the bad rap. We don't generate revenue, but we support all the areas that do.
Yeah.
So it's always like, oh, it's IT again, got to spend money, got to get nothing back for it.
What's the true double-edged sword of IT? I tell this to, colleagues all the time. It's like, why are we spending money on IT? Everything is working great. And, like, everything is broken. Why are we spending money on IT? It's like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, and we were actually, I was speaking to some clients earlier, actually it was last week, and we were speaking about 20 years ago. You could say, right, we're going to future-proof this business.
Future-proof,
IT.
yeah.
That doesn't exist
Yeah.
anymore. IT is moving so quickly, and there were just so many new things. I think it's now all about building with agility, so you can swap systems out as quickly as possible and being as painless as possible. Is that a pipe dream, or can it be a reality?
I mean, yes and no. Like, I mean, it could be close. So it's unfortunate. So the closest I think you can really get to it is if you can truly standardize. If you can truly standardize across the board, whole stack, top to bottom, and then do that across your entire client base. For folks like us as an MSP, for companies where you are, this is your IT as a division of a larger company, standardization is a much more easier task. Well, maybe it should be an easier task because you've got one environment, right? Even if it's separate, and you're trying to bring it all together, it should be one environment. And there's a real solid business case for that. Primarily, I mean, just cost savings and all kinds of stuff there. But from an outside looking in point of view, it's easy to say, like, hey, your environment's great, it's working really well, so all of my clients should work just like this. And, like, that's cool, except that not all your clients have the appetite for spending the money to get this environment. And so we have a tendency to support, like, a few environments and try and at least get everybody there. But inevitably we bring on a new client, and they're not in one of our preferred, like, how they're set up. And so it's like, okay, so it's going to take us this much to get here. So, like, we know that right off the bat, we're going to have friction and growth with this one. Like, hey, welcome to Applied. I'm going to change stuff. So right from the get go, we're going to be making changes that are probably unpopular. And so, with that comes that, like, there has to be this weird level of trust where it's like, hey, I know that this is not how you've been doing anything. This is not the environment you have. We want to get you here. You got to believe me that it's going to be better for you, not just me, when we get there. And that, that takes, that definitely takes the client going out on a limb and thinking, okay, cool, it's going to get better. Let's do it. But the perks to having as much standardization as possible is, like, there's no easier way to scale than to be able to say, like, hey, we need a new switch. Great, cool. I don't have to think about what that is. The standardization, we know exactly what that is. We have these, we have some in stock. We have, like, that's just going to happen. Even just down to things like, hey, we're, I've, like, we support clinics of all kinds of different sizes, and it's like, hey, I need to open another clinic. Great, cool. I need the address. And then like we have a process for them. Like they get X hardware. This is what every clinic starts with. Like we have a process because we've built the process with the client. So I would say that the processes are the thing that makes it scalable. Honestly, regardless of the actual stuff, like the tech stack is like you can have cool tech stack that does lots of neat stuff, but like you can, even if you just have just a boatload of manual processes, but you have a really great standardized manual process, it's still going to be faster than if you have cool tech and no process and you're just throwing stuff at it and people, like your scalability is just terrible. But if you have really great processes, it honestly doesn't even matter what the technology is. Like the process is really good and everybody's on the same page, you can churn through making things huge in a very short amount of time.
Well, there's one question I'll ask everyone that comes to the podcast. What's more important, people, processes, or tools?
Oh man, it's people. Like it really is 100%, especially for us, um,
Mm.
because like with the right people, I can find a tool. Like there's thousands of tools. Like I mean, we can, it's like you walk into Home Depot and you're like, cool, I want a drill. Well, I mean, do they all drill? Yeah, probably. Like which one do you like better? Like I don't know. Like that one's yellow, so like maybe I want that one because I like that color. But like the tools are the tools. The tool set's the same. We all do the same kinds of things, but like people, we can't. I say this a lot, where it's like I can train people to do whatever, but I can't train them to be cool people. Like if they're like, I can't train that into somebody. I can't train someone to fit here. Like that's not possible. But if somebody fits here, I can train them to do literally anything. And if we give them the right tools and the right support, we have often had folks that started here as what we call an associate, which is our entry level position. We've had folks move straight from that all the way to like, okay, cool. Like I need you to supervise these people now. And that happens because they're just like, hey, I'm here, I'm committed and I'm willing to learn. So yeah, it's the people. Like, I mean, yeah, we with great people, you could do this job with very, very few tools. If you had really awesome people that loved spending forever doing, monotonous things, you could do it without tools. But you take a decent tool set and a really good group of people, and you can do all kinds of cool stuff.
That's great. I was going to say, let's go into cybersecurity and monitoring platforms. When this is quite new to an organization, where do you see the alignment breaking down, especially on cybersecurity and monitoring? Is it between tools, teams, or outcomes? And what do you do to help bridge that gap?
So for outcomes on that, I would actually say but there's definitely a breakdown between tools and expectations. I don't know if that's the outcome or if it's the expectation that it's going to be like, cool, I did this thing. So the expectation around like, hey, what is cybersecurity going to do for me as a client or as someone's customer is like, I want to buy this thing so I don't have this which makes sense. We all want that. Like I wanna buy the tools so that I don't have to deal with X, Y, and Z. And what we're really doing is I'm gonna buy these tools so that I can lower the chance of something happening to an acceptable threshold. We're not saying like we can't buy a thing that makes me never have a problem. And that expectation sometimes doesn't line up with the customer expectation because they see like I need to have this stuff, so I'm going to spend this so I don't have this problem. And like we do that with all kinds of stuff. Like, hey, like, we don't have enough company vehicles. I'm going to buy another vehicle. Now I've solved the problem. And like cybersecurity isn't I do this one thing and it solves the problem. And so that I would say the expectation or the outcome that is a different animal than a lot of other parts of our business. Like even if you just took like monitoring and patching, for example, like you mentioned, like that's an easy one to say, like, we're doing these things. It monitors, we're patching, like we do this, it does this. It's very straightforward. It's very linear. Cybersecurity is a like, well, I've put this in place, then I added this layer, and now I'm going to add this other layer to it, and then these things are all going to work together. I hope to get you really close to the outcome that you want, which is never having a problem. But yeah, so as far as like the tools around that go, we we've seen a lot of tools. We've seen a lot of different EDR platforms. I mean, we're pretty heavily invested in Sentinel One. We love that platform. It does great stuff for us. We love their SOC team. They've worked with us on a few incidents, and they're all very great people. So we have a great time with that. But it wasn't the first tool we landed on. Talking about friction and picking the wrong tool, and boy, I wish I had known X. Like that's a whole conversation for another time. But knowing that like this tool works really well for us, and one of the reasons it works so well for us is because it works really well with our other tool sets, and so that has been a big deal for us internally. Is it's reduced the friction between like, hey, I'm throwing machines in at a client, like, can I make sure that this is deployed on them? That is very smooth. So that cuts down on frustration from my staff for making sure that we have it everywhere. Cause like EDR is amazing until you forget to install it on a machine that gets compromised, right? So like obviously like that comes down to like, what's your process? Like, do we have a standardized process? Does the process cover doing that? Is it something that every tech can do? Is it something where like we've made the process so straightforward that like we're not going to miss a step that's super critical, like putting EDR on a machine? And so that, I'd say a lot of these things do really go together. The tool sets do have to work well together, because if you have friction between your security stack and the rest of your network and monitoring stack, then it's really easy for pieces to get missed. And like, oh, well, man, this is tough to do, but like Bob can do that, but he's back next week. And then like, cool, like I guarantee you're going to have a problem between now and next week when Bob is back, because like, you're like, oh man, I don't know how to integrate. Like if you have it straightforward enough so that like these tools all work together and everyone has access to all of the tools, one, yes, that can be overwhelming because you got access to all these tools. But two, and I think probably most importantly, it means that everyone has the opportunity to make sure that we're doing it right from the beginning. And hopefully, if we're all doing it right from the beginning, everything works together. And then we've aligned that with the expectation that the customer has that, like, hey, take care of my problems for me. Then, in the hopefully small percentage of scenarios where we have a problem, then we've done all the right things, so to speak. And so we're dealing with a problem that's maybe not world ending. Or what do I term those? The RGE, the resume generating event. We never really want those. We want it to be very, like, hey, cool. Like there is an issue. There was, security problem on this machine, but now we've isolated it, like we AI flagged it, the team isolated it on the network. Now we know that this is where the thing is, and this is the infection, and we've contained it to this one thing. And that, like, that's actually a really great outcome. If we have an incident and we've been able to, mitigate that, and make it so that it's really not a huge incident and it's something that's very easily resolvable. And then if you've taken that and combined it with all the hopeful standardization that you've been doing, then you've had this problem, you've had this issue, this machine is here. Like, okay, cool. Well, we isolated it on the network and that's great, but like we're going to turn this over to forensics now. So we're just going to yank the whole thing. And then since they're so standardized, I can just easily deploy another machine for this person to use. They're back online. I'm still working with insurance over here. Everybody wins. And so that's sort of like the great goal, right? But it really comes down to like all the tools have to work really well together and everybody has to have access to those tools. We've always been like, security is for everybody, not just for everybody on my team, but for everybody in our client environments. Like if you're just blissfully unaware, you're gonna have a bad time.
That brings me perfectly to the next question was, when you're advising like mid-sized companies that are already feeling the strain of disconnected tools, tech fatigue and fragmented culture because of all the change, what's the first thing that you generally tend to suggest to them about what they should rethink or streamline?
Oh man, that's a great question. I'm trying to think of like what's the thing that floats to the top on that, because it's never the same thing.
Really? Yeah.
I I mean, really, I think, oh man, I would honestly say like what's the baseline of awareness of like what does everybody know, like what we're, because like we're all collectively facing the same threat, right? Or I mean it's tons of groups of threats, sure, yeah, but like it's all the same kind of stuff. Like it's like these are the security threats that are out there, and this is how we're gonna face them. And I would say that a lot of times there's just total misunderstanding around like what is the actual problem, like what's the threat that's out there, like what are we up against as a technology, like on the defense side, like what are we playing defense against? And that can be totally, like I said, with outcomes versus expectation. I think that is usually totally misaligned, and like, oh well, we're trying to stop this from happening, and like that's cool, like we should, but that's probably likely not super likely to happen to you guys. Like, so what should we really stop from happening? And then it's like, okay, well, that opens up this conversation about what we're really up against. So we see that just sort of the expectations of what a customer has being sort misaligned with reality a lot. Not that that's their fault. That's just what they've seen, what they've heard, what they've been exposed to. And there's, we've sort of seen that. But I would say that the going along with that, another sort of friction point, if you will, that we run into early on in any engagement is this like weird stigma around security and around management of security, with it being like the thing that, like, if you've had an incident, like nobody wants to talk about it, like it's all big and it's hush hush, and like, oh, it's a big secret, and like, oh, well, last year we had a security problem. It's like, okay, well, like, I don't care. Like, like, we're going to help you solve it or whatever. And like, that's great. But like, we don't learn by keeping it a secret. Like, we really don't. And I do, when I do presentations for organizations, a lot of times I'll I hit them with all these stats, and they're terrifying numbers, and everybody's very scared at the end of it. And that's not my point. That's not the reason I'm doing it. But a lot of times I lead off with these, because probably the worst stat that I have in there is most of my stats are all from the FBI, DOJ, and other governmental sources, and that's fine. But they all sort of collectively agree that we're way under 50% on reporting to the government, and that's why you've seen a lot of laws change in the last year or so, where now you're legally required to report if you're in healthcare or whatever, because all the stats we have are terrifying, but they're all not accurate, because all those numbers are way lower than they actually are, because organizations have had incidents and not reported it because they haven't been required to do so. So, not that I'm a huge fan of like, here are the requirements, but like, if we're all just keeping it to ourselves, then we're all allowing the bad actors to get away with stuff that they know worked and no one else knows it worked. And that's not helping anybody. So yeah, I would say removing that stigma and making it, hey, this is a thing we're all going to talk about. That's key. And then making sure we're all just on the same page with like what we're actually up against. So I would say those are probably the things that really float to the top a lot, other than just like, hey, I've got this for this, and I've got this company for this and this. And I mean, the vendor cloud, that's super common, where you're just like, hey, I've got like 40 vendors for security. And it's like, okay, well, that's a pain. Like, we got to fix that. Because there's yeah, streamlining that makes a big difference. You can definitely, I mean, not only is there cost savings usually, as long as you're not in these huge contracts, but usually there's a way to get that to a point where that will really work well.
Well, it's very intriguing. If those stats are terrifying now and people haven't been reporting everything, wouldn't it be 10 times worse if people did report
It's
everything?
terrible, right? So about
Yes, that's
3 years ago,
sense.
the FBI estimated that about 10% of cybercrime was reported, and then that's grown to about 50% of cybercrime is reported. And it gets better as the stigma goes away, because it was like, oh, it was a ransomware event. Well, the last thing you wanted was to be in the news for that. So like, if there was a way for you to solve the problem without reporting it, a lot of organizations went that way, because there was no reason not to, right? If they could get it taken care of and nobody knew about it, they were going to do that, and if there was no legal reason, or there was no real reason for them to share it, they weren't going to. I mean, and in a way, you can't really fault an organization for taking that tack, because like, nobody else is doing it. But
What was the reputation?
yes, but I mean, it helps us all when we're all dealing with the same thing. So, that's definitely one of those things that, like, hey, the more we collectively know about this as a, I guess, society, then the better it will be on our end on defense. And yeah, the stats are bad, right? I mean, you've seen them too. Like, you look at like what is it's like every 60 seconds there's a cyber incident in the small and medium business market, and that's probably not as often as it should be, because that they're not all being reported.
I mean, especially with AI coming to place, I'd say security is so critical about being responsible with it, making sure you've got enough security around it. I think companies want to embrace AI like so much, but without putting proper measures in place and doing it responsibly.
And it's a tough one to do responsibly, because you don't control it end to end, with so many tools. I mean, an AI really is just a tool, but with so many tools, you buy the tool and you get it. And here I am. Or like, you have, like, even if you talk about a tool as big and ubiquitous as like Microsoft 365, like, you get your own tenant. Here's my tenant for 365. Yeah, I'm in the Microsoft cloud, but this is my own little chunk. A lot of AI tools aren't like that. Some are, you get your own little chunk. Others are like, hey, welcome to the pool. And like, you're all in there together. And so like, where's my data? How's it being used? Like, and then that's where the compliance conversation around AI comes into play. It's like, okay, well, I can't guarantee compliance on this because like, I have no idea who else is in this pool, you know? And they shouldn't tell me. That would be a bad idea. So like we really are never going to know. And so yeah, so that we've seen a lot of change around just how AI tools are offered to customers. And a lot of them now are like, here's your little private language model, and like, here's your little tenant, and here's how we're chunking it up. And it's nice to see that sort of subset of the industry has realized that like, oh, we really have to do this. Like, we have to. So it's nice to see that happening. But even still, like, like I said earlier, it's almost the wild west of AI. Like, it's in everything. Everybody's got an AI powered something, and that's cool. Like, you get your AI powered toaster that's gonna like tell you when your toast is done, and like that's amazing. But like, there's a whole slew of everything else that comes along with that. That's just nobody has any idea what's really going on in the back end, except for whatever vendor you pick. So, I mean, and that's a whole topic about like vendor
Only
selection,
AI is going to know.
and how do you vet vendors can be a big deal too. So.
So, how are you helping clients or even your own internal teams use AI practically without the noise and
Oh
confusion
man.
to really stretch operations?
So this is probably going to be sort of an unpopular answer, but a lot of times the answer to that is that we are not going to use AI for this thing because we don't have a good solution for it. And I know that's sort of very old school and like old man yells at cloud of me, but I have a tendency to like, if we can't say that this is how it's going to work and this is how it's going to impact us or impact our clients, I don't want to hear. Like one of the things we really roll with is like really proven, reliable solutions. There are some of those that are AI driven and that have great AI behind them. And there's a ton of AI, there's a ton of new AI opportunities that all seem very awesome on the surface, but like without really knowing, like it's tough for me to say like, hey, cool, we're going to put this everywhere because that's not a whole lot different than saying like, hey, Bill from accounting wrote his own piece of accounting software, so we're going to put that everywhere, and then Bill leaves and nobody knows how to support it. It's the same thing when we take like a totally unproven AI thing that like looks great on the surface, maybe it even does what it says it's supposed to do, we put it everywhere, and then they're just gone or absorbed by somebody else, and it's like, okay, well, I put too much faith in that. So like, we have a tendency to take a much more measured approach to what do we adopt and how. And I don't know. Remains to be seen how well that works. But we have a very different, I think, approach to a lot of folks that are just like, oh, AI is here, we're going to use it everywhere, and like we have not done that.
Well, sticking with that, what works, stick with that. Being with systems that are proven and reliable. Given your current tech stack with that, are there processes or areas where you think that you could move faster or scale more easily?
Absolutely, yeah. I think as far as like how easily we could scale, what we see a lot of is I mean, obviously, we do a ton of endpoint management. That's sort of I'd say the middle of the bell curve of things that we do for folks. So with that comes a lot of comes a lot of tasks that can easily be you could easily apply AI to those, which is great. But where I think probably the thing that could really make the most difference for us is really just interoperability. And this comes back to that, like, man, we're never going to get the single pane of glass. Like, that's never going to happen. But like, if I could at least get one or two of these things out of the way so that I know that like these alerts are going to show up over here, and then at least I know I got to go log into that other thing. The interoperability and the integrations, that's a big deal for us internally. So I think if there's a thing that could get better and help, it would be that. And we've seen an improvement in that really in the last year or two. And I don't know if that's really just because there's so much more out there in the marketplace for all of these tools than there used to be. But we've seen a lot of like, it used to be like, hey, like, I'll pick on SolarWinds because they're huge and we can, but it used to be like, hey, here's a SolarWinds product and it works with other SolarWinds products. And now it's like, here's a SolarWinds product and it integrates with ConnectWise and it integrates with Datto and it integrates with like, because it has to, right? Because like, so like, I mean, we have our preferred remote support tool is actually not part of our main vendor's tech stack. And like we have their support tool and that's great, but like we actually rolled a different one because like we all like it better. But they work great together. If they didn't, that'd be a different story. So I think that integration and interoperability between bits of your tech stack, I think that's probably like the big, like, hey, this is the thing. I think that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. And I see that across the board. It's all about integration. And these days, if you don't have that in place, you're left behind.
Pretty much, yeah.
So looking ahead at Applied Technology Solutions, where would you like to take your company over the next 6 to 12 months?
Oh, great question. I wish I had a real good answer for you for that. So yeah, where would we like to take us? We made a huge push in the last probably 2 or 3 years to really just like take everything we have and security focus it because like that's the thing, and not just because it's the buzzword, which it totally is, but like how is that actually, if we have a product, whatever it is, like, let's just let's just say like mail filtering, right? So we're doing email filtering or whatever product, it doesn't matter. So if we have this product and if the focus of that product is not to like drive increased security, then like why is it here? So for us, I think finishing that project in the next couple of years, because there's a few products that we still have where we're just like we have this and like we're using it, but like I'm sure there's a better way to do this. And that comes back to what we were talking about earlier with that like friction of growth is like, hey, we've adopted X, Y, and Z. Like, okay, like, is this still the right product for us? So for us, it's really sort of streamlining and getting ready for, I think, our next phase of growth so that we can actually get there without getting there and then having to make these problems get fixed at scale, which is what I don't want to do. So yeah, our growth really is, I mean, we've had a couple of growth years that were pretty solid. I mean, 40% year over year has been a lot. And so I think for us, it's just making sure that we are responsibly doing that in a way that we can actually manage it. So I love growth. Everybody loves growth, but we want to grow in a way where we can still be in our lane doing the things we do very well. Um, and our big challenge, and I guess what we're trying to do to really answer your question is to be able to, get, probably not double in size, but, to get to a different level and a different size while still being what we are, like without losing the identity that we have and, being able to do what we do very well still, but at a larger scale. And that scale will not, we know that it will not go indefinitely. We're never going to be like a massive national MSP because you just can't do that. Like you've passed the scale in which you can be, do the things that we have in our lane. Um, and that's fine. Like that's why those companies exist and they're very good at that. And we're very good at what we do. And so I think finding our road through growth has been a challenge because we want to maintain our identity through it. And not just become every other MSP. So our goal really is to make sure that we're doing that, keeping who we are, and then making sure that we have not ignored security along the way. Because security focus that's our jam. Like we are a security focused MSP, and if we're not doing a thing with that front of mind, then we're doing it the wrong way.
I love it, the absolute focus. I mean, so many people are, oh, new shiny new toy, and they go totally out of the swim
It's
lanes.
easy to
And you
do.
find it really is.
It's so easy to do. So I mean, you see it in your inbox all the time. It's like, hey, we got this new tool, and half of the time it's an AI tool, and you're just like, well, maybe I want to look at that, and you're just like, okay, I gotta not do that.
Absolutely. It doesn't benefit the bigger strategy and all
Right.
things. Yeah. So if you could solve one issue like today at a click of a finger, what would it be?
Ooh, man, that's a great question. It's funny because if you asked me that question 2 months ago, it would have been finding the right people to fill these empty roles that we have. But we filled them, which is great, with great people, which is amazing. But I would honestly say, like, if we were going to solve a problem, I mean, really, just that is probably our largest problem that comes up more often as we grow, or as we have employees that'll transition out. They'll go to a larger company, or they'll go to like a municipality. I mean, we we are in an interesting place in California where we have a lot of opportunities in our area. So it's not unusual for folks to grow with us and then grow out and move to another organization, and that's great for them. It's good for their career. That's fine. Just not great for us because then I got to find somebody else to take that spot. But that's okay. And it would be okay if sourcing employees was something that was more straightforward to do. And like for companies our size, like we don't have a recruiting team. I don't have a recruiter. We don't have like, like, I mean, Amber in our office does so much stuff for us, including like she does HR, she does payroll, she does all those things. She's also the one I saddle with like, hey, it's time to like get another employee or we got to replace, so and so. And so it's very much, I would say, recruitment, I guess you could call it that. But I mean, really finding the right people, that's the biggest problem. And if I could solve it by like snap my fingers and solve that problem so that when I needed the right person, they were somewhere I could find them or I could find them without having to, without having to make that hiring process months long, then yeah, that would be the problem I would solve. Like I said, people, that's kind of the most important thing for us. Like we can find a million tools, but I can't find a million people.
I love that. That is such a great expression. Um, Before we wrap up, Jeff, what's one piece of advice that you give other leaders working to preserve culture while also embracing more digital tools?
Oh man, so I would say that well, what's one piece? Okay, here's two pieces, but like they go together, right? So the first is define the culture, right? If you haven't picked what is, so people ask us often, like, hey, what's your company culture? And it's like, well, like it really boils down to like, I've never wanted a place that you hate going to work at. Like you should want, like, I mean, nobody's like, oh man, I want to work. Like, I mean, we all want to work. We want to do a good job, but like, we want an environment where like, you're not like, you don't wake up in the morning and hit the alarm clock and just be like, oh man, not again. I cannot do this another day. Like that is not what we're doing here. Like, we want this to be an environment where you at least enjoy being here enough that we can all do this together. Right. So like with the, temper that with reality. I mean, and there's a lot that goes into our culture that, that kind of builds off of that. Like, hey, we want this to be someplace where you actually enjoy being, and we have tried to do a lot to make it that way. So I think when you define, at least broadly, broad stroke, define like, hey, our company culture is this, and like whatever that is, it doesn't matter. It matters that you know what it is, so that you can actually focus on that. Because I feel like when you say like, hey, here's what we're trying to do is make this an enjoyable place to work. Well, like, okay, cool. Who wouldn't want that? But at the same time, that gives me a place to go when I look at anything. Like, hey, like, what are we doing with X? Like, do these tools suck? Like, do we hate this vendor? Like, how are we hiring people? Like, who are we putting in these seats? Like, if we interview someone and they're just extremely cynical, well, it's like, hey, you're probably not going to fit great here. Like, you can obviously do the work, but like, I don't want to hire you and have you have a bad time here. And then like that changes our company dynamic in the wrong way. And so for me, I'd say that's sort of my piece of advice is that you know what you're trying to accomplish so that you can actually just align everything else to that. Is if you know that like this is what we want our culture to feel like, even if that's all it's like I want the company to feel like this. That's cool. If you can define that sort of even big broad strokes, that's tremendous because then you can really start to align things to it. And it's weird when you take something even as broad as like, this should be a cool place to work. Like that makes a lot of sense when you're like, cool, should we have a coffee bar? Yeah, we should totally have one because we want this to be a cool place to work. Like, should there be beer in the fridge for Friday afternoon? Like, absolutely, because that makes it more fun. Like, for those that want it, it should totally be there. So, like, it's easy to align things when you know what you're trying to align it to. So like defining that culture makes a big difference. And like I said, it doesn't even have to be super defined. Like we're a company that does X, Y, and Z. You're not making a mission statement. And I feel like that's like you get way out in the weeds when you ask people about company culture because they're just like, oh well, and they have this whole spiel, and it's like that's cool. What does that mean? Like if I wanted to work there, what does that feel like? We're not the Marine Corps. It doesn't have to be this. It can be broad, and we can be flexible. And we actually think that is what makes it more of a better place to work is because like we can be super flexible. Um, but yeah, so that's my big piece of advice is you define the culture because everything else will line up to it.
Well, I'm sure after that, a lot of people are going to want to start working at your company. Um, Jeff, if listeners want to learn more about cloud technology solutions or connect with you, Where's the best place that they could do that?
Probably LinkedIn, honestly, because like it's just so not to sling a brand, but like they're very it's just so streamlined. It's just you can find me on there. You could send me a message on there. The company's on there. We're easy to find. Yeah, probably LinkedIn. Yeah, I mean, cool. Yeah, go to our website or whatever. But like so many people, like we all have these priorities, right? And like making our website actually line up with the things we're currently doing has been a pretty low priority for me for a while. So yeah, find me on LinkedIn, hit me up, and I'm more than happy to talk about whatever. Yeah, we're like I said, open communication. That is our that is one of our top core values. We've got four that really drive us. That's one of the biggest ones, and I really feel that way. Like there's nobody should work in a vacuum. And like I mean, if somebody really wants to know something about how we do something, like I'm happy to share it. Like we're not. We don't have state secrets over here. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're not doing anything anybody else is not doing. I think the difference is I'm just willing to, I'm willing to share it. And I don't know if a lot of people do that, but
That's wonderful, Jeff. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It's been absolutely wonderful. Such a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
thanks for having me. I love it. Like I said, happy to share. I'm pretty open book.
Thanks, Jeff.